want to welcome Justin Kahn, and we'll be talking about his entrepreneurship journey and his lessons he's learned along the way, and also about his lessons not just from entrepreneurship, but also from personal growth and about his leadership style. And also we will be talking about is a term which he talks about. It's called baseline happiness. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Justin Kahn on our stage. Justin, welcome.
All right, there we go. Hopefully I'm live now. How are you?
Justin, hi. Justin, we are very happy to have you here. Thanks for coming and thanks for being here all the way from the West Coast. Justin, to kind of jump right in, when I was preparing for this talk, I've seen that you have a super interesting. I don't think there are many people or many entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley or from elsewhere who are entrepreneurs in tech who have such an interesting journey. But let's start from the beginning. I have seen that when you were growing up, you had learned some important skills from your parents, and your parents made you do your chores, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot of chores. I was a great vacuumer.
Uh-huh. And and when you look back at it, how important do you think these kind of little duties of children when they are growing up, how important they are in terms of this entrepreneurship mindset?
Well, the thing actually that I think that helped the most when I think I've talked about this before, but the thing that maybe gave me a good presence of mind or skill set to as an entrepreneur was my mom would always give me these lists of chores to do with my brothers. I have two younger brothers. And so we get this list that wasn't assigned to any individual person. It was just a list of things to do that we had to get done together. And it was a small thing, but it really made us, we had to do everything on this list before we could play Nintendo, whatever it was. And the thing I liked about that as an adult was that it felt very unfair as a kid. I was like, why can't I just have my own list of things to do and then I will like do them and then I'll get to go play Nintendo, and my brothers, I don't care what happens to them. But as a team, it really did create this team dynamic where we were like, okay, let's divide this up, let's do them. And then, if one person was slower, then everyone would help them do their thing so that, we could all go play Nintendo. And so I felt like that was relevant as a startup founder. You really are, it's a team game. You're working together, you're building this company together. It doesn't really matter whose fault it is. If something's behind, you have to, as a group, come together to figure out how to solve whatever problem that is.
Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting answer. Now, when people are growing up, some of the people, they start selling orange juice at the stand outside when they are 12. How did you get into this entrepreneurship world?
Well, I guess I'd always been interested in entrepreneurship. My mom was an entrepreneur. She had this small business that was a mortgage brokerage and real estate agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just fascinated by the idea of like starting a company and being your own boss ever since I was, probably in middle school. And then when I was in college, I was at Yale. I've been interested in entrepreneurship, but didn't really have an idea or something to start. And one of my friends came to me and he was like, "We should start a company because we have nothing but time to do. Right now we're just at very low opportunity cost." And so he kind of convinced me, and then we were looking around for ideas, and we ended up deciding to start an online calendar company. This is like right when Gmail came out, so we thought someone could build a calendar that's kind of similar to Gmail. Turns out that someone was Google, and they built Google Calendar, but we were trying to build an independent calendar app back in 2005. And that's how I got started.
You building it while you were studying or after you finished studying?
Yeah, it was while we were studying, and then afterwards as well. We kind of continued on. So the while we were, it was while we were seniors in college, and then we got into the very first batch of Y Combinator, and that's how we got our start.
So this company Kiko, the social web-based calendar, you had a couple of talks to sell it, right? And some of them did not go well, and then you kind of thought out of the box, and somebody had an idea of why don't you put it on eBay? How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah. Well, all the talks to sell it did not go well. I mean, we thought they were going well. We actually had
Mm.
offers, um, which is a whole nother story, but I won't get into that. But we had offers that fell through, and so we thought we were going to sell this company, and then um, what happened was, I mean, the company was not doing very well. It wasn't growing. We didn't really know how to make it grow, but we had this technology that we thought was kind of cool, and so as a last ditch effort, we decided to put it on eBay. And I had thought of the idea because I saw another company actually sell themselves on eBay, and they got like $100,000 for their website. For me at the time, that was a lot of money. And so I was like, we could,
It
I,
was,
I
yeah.
could do that. Yeah. So we decided to list it, and then eventually the auction went for, the final day. It just kind of kept shooting up. It started off at 50,000, then went up, and it was like every time I click refresh, it would like shoot up another 10, 20, $30,000. And then it was like, it ended at $258,100, like a number that will always be burned in my mind forever. And we felt like we had become successful kind of randomly.
And,
I mean, that was like, it
and
wasn't
did it take
obviously
off
that huge of an act.
through the media, or how did you get customers or people looking at the eBay page?
Yeah, I think it was such a funny kind of random idea. Like everyone had forgotten this other company that was called Jux2 had sold this
Uh-huh.
search engine thing. It was like a way to view search results. They had sold on eBay the year before, but like no one remembered that. So everyone thought that this was like a super original idea. And then that's how like the media started covering it. It was on TechCrunch and stuff like that. And that's how
So
you know,
and now,
people
now you had your
discovered it.
first successful exit. Now, how long before you wanted to do and build something else after Kiko?
So, I mean, pretty much immediately we're like, okay, what are we going to do? And so we had ideas, and we came up with this idea that was not very good, which is kind of the idea of being able to print out a, your online content, like your essays or something like that,
Mhm.
and turn it into like a coffee table book or a book that your like fans can buy. And we went to Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator. We went over to his house. He was like, "You should start another company." We were kind of surprised he was encouraging us because the first company had not ended that. We sold it on eBay, but I don't think it was the outcome everybody dreamed of. And so we went over to his house and pitched him this idea, and he was like, that idea is not great." And so he said, "Do you have any other ideas for startups?" And the one I had was this idea of creating a live stream of my life 24/7, and building the technology to enable that because it didn't exist yet. And so we said, well, we have this idea for this thing we call Justin TV. And we started talking about it. He liked it, actually, surprisingly. And we walked out of there with a check for $50,000. And then that's how we started the next company.
Yeah, and that's a super fascinating story because I remember I think it was Mike from Floodgate or somebody was telling us about how you're walking around with the whole backpack full of gear, and you had several mobile phones because this was pre iPhone, and there was no streaming technology existing. And how did you even think that you can put this whole thing together to not just record but stream at the same time as well?
Well, we didn't know how to do it, actually. So it was really, Mike was one of our early investors. I think he saw the backpack, in the very early days, and the idea was like we were going to create this infrastructure, which was hardware at the time. So it was like a computer in a backpack,
Hmm.
battery powered, that would take a webcam stream, webcam like a analog camera, turn it into a digital stream it over multiple cell phone modems, and then on the back end we had a server that would like accept those, take those packets, reconstitute them into a stream, and then send it out for distribution. And even like flash, like live streaming, like something like this setup was not mature at the time. This is like 2006 and 2007, and it would crash all the time. Like Flash Media Server was like not good at live streaming, and so we had to build a lot of like software to basically fix the streaming infrastructure, or like create the streaming infrastructure. It
Yes.
was a pretty hard
And
technical
tell me,
challenge at the time.
did you
Yeah.
build how yes how did you build the deal for that? Like, how did you decide who to invite to do this Justin TV with, and what was the criteria?
Yeah. So, it was really just the people we knew, right? We were really young founders. We didn't know anything. We were like 22 at the time, maybe
Mhm.
23 actually. And so found two other co-founders. My co-founder Emmett and I, Emmett had worked on Kiko with me. We decided to find two other co-founders, and well, not decided. We like randomly found two other co-founders. One was my friend Michael from college, who had just finished up his job as running a Senate campaign that lost, and so he was available, and he was very organized. We thought he was like a good, could be a good business guy to be on the team. And then we recruited Kyle, who is not a friend at the time, but someone we met through a mailing list at MIT, because we were like, we need someone to help work on the hardware side. Like, does anybody want to do this? And so he responded and sent us this very elaborate, report, or like a plan of like how he would execute the hardware idea. And we were like, this is way more than we know. So let's bring him on.
Because when I was preparing for this talk, I was trying to understand, are you just extremely lucky, or you have some special skill of being able to tell which people you should work with? Because, the Michael you mentioned is now running Y Combinator. And when I was asking you about some favorite memories with you, he mentioned two. One of them is when you asked him to join Justin TV.
Yeah.
And the second, he mentioned that apparently you had a special road trip across the country together.
Oh yeah, we drove. He was, a friend of ours on the East Coast, so we ended up driving from New York to San Francisco, and that's how we got out here to start the company in the first place. It's pretty. I think he probably remembers it better than it was, because it was not a great road. I mean, it was a fun time to spend with friends, but we didn't stop anywhere. We just drove across the country straight for 4 days.
So it was an adventure there as well. Now, Justin TV is a super interesting example, because Justin TV is a company which didn't have an amazing phone. It was just for adjusting TV. You had lots of troubles. You had to solve lots of technological problems, and you mentioned this reliability. But what I liked is that while you were building this, you always had a way of solving problems in original way. There was this colleague of yours apparently who was solving this technology, and at some point he was just so fed up from all this technology failing that he wanted to take a break, and he went away, and the site went down, and you wanted to reach him and you couldn't because he didn't pick up the phone. So apparently you ordered pizza for him, right?
Yeah. So Kyle, our co-founder, was kind of in charge of the video streaming side. He went on vacation and was in Tahoe, and the site would just like constantly go down at that time. It's like probably 2008. And so we were like, how do we get a hold of him? And the way we did it was we just ordered a pizza to his house and had someone, the delivery driver, go to his house and read him this message. The website is down. So then he called us. He was like, why didn't you send me the pizza? And I was like, we didn't want we told him, don't wait for the pizza. We'll pay for a pizza. You just go there to his house right now. So he's kind of upset about that, but
so there was no pizza involved. Oh, that's even worse.
No, because I mean, cooking a pizza is like 15 minutes. This is a live video site. We didn't have any minutes to spare. We were like, go now.
Yeah. Great. And so Justin TV then became a kind of a hotbed for interesting other companies which were spinning out of that. And one of these companies was SocialCam, which then Michael went to do, and you managed to sell SocialCam to Autodesk, and then the other company which you kind of had this insight of even though the feedback from customers was not overwhelmingly positive, but they liked this technology as a platform, right? And then you decided to kind of listen to customers, and one of the strong segments was gaming. At the time, where gaming was not really known for being a massive market like it is now. Why did you decide to not just serve this niche, but pivot the whole company into it?
Yeah, well, it didn't happen like overnight, right? So what happened was we were looking for things to pivot into because Justin TV itself was flat, and so we decided to, we decided to basically we like look at all the categories of what people were using on Justin TV, and one of those things was gaming. And my co-founder Emmett really loved the gaming content. StarCraft 2 had just come out. That was what he was interested in. There was the only content he liked watching on the site, so he decided to work on. He was like, "Let's work on the gaming content," and we didn't pivot overnight. We were like, "Okay, let's put some resources on it." He took a small team and started working on it, and then we just started getting more and more traction among gaming, and eventually more and more of the resources went over to gaming over the next probably like 2 years. And then at that point, it was like, okay, this is the focus of the company.
And were you scared when you were doing the whole company pivot into it?
I don't know if scared was the right thing. Like there was definitely some anxiety on like whether it's going to work or not, but mostly, it was a new idea we're pretty excited about. We thought, it was working. And so maybe there was a little bit more, it was mostly excitement, I mean,
Mhm.
I think it was kind of like the same underlying undercurrent of anxiety that's probably always there when you're starting a startup, which is like, if this doesn't work, kind of screwed. So, there was something, but it wasn't any different than it had been previous, which is like, oh, it's not growing. Like we need to do something. Otherwise we're kind of screwed. That was just,
Mhm.
we always felt that there was this baseline of like maybe a little bit of being kind of screwed if things didn't work out.
Yes. And when you changed into Twitch, how much time did you need to realize it hit the spot, and now this is a company which really has the product market fit, and it was exploding?
Well,
Was it a long
what we
time,
did
or it
was
took a while?
there's probably a 6 month period where we were like, that was our test, our primary test period. So we had a plan, which was like, let's put milestone metrics in place for every month, to like, because gaming was kind of contentious because we didn't think, it was kind of unclear that it could be such a big market, right? A big company. So what we did was we decided, okay, if it's going to be successful, then we could be the biggest video website on the internet in 2 years, right? That was our idea. And so we backed out how much we had to grow every month, and it was like 15% monthly growth. And so we said, if we hit 15% monthly growth for the first 6 months, then we're going to be confident in this idea.
Mhm.
We're gonna go full forward with it. And that was what we decided to do. We decided to like hit these, try for these milestones, and then because we hit them, we were pretty confident that we should work on the gaming content.
Can you share some tips on what worked from those growth activities? How did you get those 15% monthly growth?
Yeah, it was entirely, Emmett went and talked to the customers, and he spent his entire time like doing customer development with the gaming broadcasters, figuring out
Mhm.
what they wanted and then building for them. So that was the thing that fueled it. It was like just creating that tight feedback loop with the customers, which is something we had never done when we were just working on Justin TV.
Mhm. Okay, and then there was also another company which actually I'm kind of confused of when did you build it? Was it next to Justin TV? Is this company called Execs, the Exec, and the Exec was a chores company and cleaning service, and you build it with your brother and also
Yeah.
with another co-founder. How did you start it? Was it next to Justin TV or was it slightly before?
No, it was after. So we pivoted
After.
into Twitch, and Twitch was
Mhm.
working. So over a couple of years, it started working. And then I decided like in 2012, I was like, okay, well, this is kind of working. It's really Emmett was the driver of it. He loved the gaming content, and he was really the
Mhm.
the product person behind it. And he had become the CEO of the company. So I decided like, I'll start another company. And I've always been interested in new ideas, so I decided to start a new company, and that's what we did. And the idea behind Exec was like kind of an on-demand errand running service, and didn't work out very well for a variety of reasons. But that's we took a swing with it, and I was able to start it with my brother.
Yes, and how did you enjoy working with your brother on this company?
I love working with my brother. I think it's nice to he has very similar values to what to me, and I think values alignment is really important in having a co-founder. And so, it was great. It was great to work with him, and he's gone on to do great things. After Exec failed, he went on to found Cruise with Kyle, our Justin TV co-founder, and they obviously have taken that to pretty astronomical heights.
That's true, and that's what I'm trying to get into because when I look at your story, it's the story from backwards really is about connecting the dots, and you seem to be somehow very good at connecting these dots. And at the time, you were apparently kind of having too much, and then you went to talent, right? And you asked your brother to negotiate a deal of selling Exec to Handy. Is it true?
Yeah. Yeah. So we were acqui-hiring our company to like this company Handy, which was in the space, and it just was dragging on and on. I was super burned out. So I just kind of, well, it was not the classiest thing to do, but at a certain point I was just like, okay, Daniel, you've got to like finish this negotiation. I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I left.
And it was his first negotiation, right?
Yeah, and it was his first negotiation.
First deal.
Yeah, first deal.
And he made some
Yeah.
mistakes, and if you would just leave it there, it would seem maybe like a failure for some.
Well, he
certainly.
didn't really make. I wouldn't say that he made mistakes. I think I made some mistakes in terms of how we set up the timeline for the negotiation and stuff like that. He was just executing it. Yeah.
So, from the company perspective, there were some mistakes made, and the exit was 10 million, which is still a fairly nice exit. Maybe not from your perspective, but then exactly 2 years later, your brother developed this awesome technology at Cruise, and 2 years later, after this deal, he actually managed to remember all those negotiations he was going for, and this time he was adjusting and learning from that, and he managed to sell Cruise to GM for $1 billion.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job.
Awesome job, and there's also this line which goes all the way through your entrepreneurship journey on learning, and and that's what I'm trying to get into now. Can you please tell us about how do you see, because you achieved a lot of interesting objectives, and most entrepreneurs they do something big, and then they take it easier. They start investing and so on, which you did as well at Y Combinator. You were a partner, but then you figure out it wasn't for you because you were not learning so much, and you decided to go back into this entrepreneurship world. And tell us about how do you see your need of growing personally, and how do you go about it?
Well, I just like doing new things and learning about new industries and new ideas and kind of working on new ideas. And so there's like things that are good about that and things that are bad about it, right? Like one of the good things is I have a pretty open and curious mind when it comes to ideas. One of the bad things is that, in order to build a company, you have to stick with something for a long time. And oftentimes, I find myself getting bored, or maybe I'm not the best at managing and executing after the first, initial couple of years. And so for me, it's really been about creating a vehicle for facilitating my strengths, and maybe compensating for my weaknesses. And now what that looks like is, I've created a new fund called Go Capital to invest in startups, and then also incubate some ideas with other co-founders where, I'm not necessarily going to be the CEO of the company, but I get to work with people who are amazing on interesting ideas and help in the very early stages, which is what I'm good at. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about as my higher purpose right now,
Okay. And when it comes to your fund, what kind of stuff do you want to invest in, or what kind of industry?
There's a lot of different things, but particularly interested in robotics and automation, in climate change, in digital entertainment, and e-commerce, and then healthcare. Those are some of the areas that we have more direct experience.
Interesting, nice. And you talk about your strengths, and when I spoke to Michael, I asked Michael about some insights. Apparently, you're very good at inspiring people around you. Please tell us what's your approach? How do you go about inspiring people, or convincing people to work with you, or what's your leadership style?
Well, I think I'm just very enthusiastic about new ideas. So for me, it's just manifests as like I'm an evangelist type personality. And when I'm enthusiastic about a new idea, I can't stop talking about it to people around me, and that gets them excited, and then they want to work on it. And that's really my, kind of what I've done my whole career. I don't know if there's any. It's not that strategic in a way. It's not like I'm, I don't have a specific strategy. It's just my natural enthusiasm comes through, I think.
Okay, so you're passionate about stuff you start working on.
Yeah, and I just talk about it a lot, and I talk about it with everyone I meet, and then some of those people are like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, and then they get sucked into the vortex.
Okay, so you have this kind of rules, and I'd like to know, you also try to develop personally, not just business wise, and grow. What is your working morale? We have a question here from Bogdan. He wants to know how many hours a day do you work, and what do you work during the weekends, and what's your take on the work-life balance as an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. I mean, I used to work a lot, but now, I mean, it kind of depends. Like the ideal case for me is that I'm doing things that don't really feel like work. Um, so I don't force myself to do them. And so,
Mhm.
oftentimes the difference between like work and pleasure or like work and other activities is like very blended. Like for example, I have a lot of friends, like very close personal friends that I work with in some capacity or invest with, or I'm like a mentor there, their company or whatever. And I guess some of those things are kind of work because I, eventually may get paid off of them because I'm an investor in this company. And if I help it become successful, then, I make some money or something. But it doesn't feel like work because it's just like I'm having a conversation where I'm helping out a friend, you know? And so that can extend, uh, or I'm like doing a talk and I like giving talks and like mentoring other people. So that does that feel like work? I don't know. I mean, not really. And so I guess I do those things all the time. So
Mhm.
some days I'm like actually only working. I'm probably only doing something what people would call like work, like a couple hours, like 3 hours. And some days it might be like 12 hours. It doesn't feel like it. I'm just thinking like this weekend or like tonight, I'm going to call a friend of mine at 9 p.m. and give her advice on her company. And is that work? I don't know. Maybe not, but like I like doing it. So,
And how
um,
about weekends? Do you work
you know,
weekends?
it's the same thing. Like this weekend, I'm thinking like I'm interviewing some people for our fund to join our fund and
Mhm.
schedule it for the weekend. And but it doesn't really feel like work because I like connecting with people and I love talking about ideas and our fund. So I guess that's technically work, but I don't mind doing it on the weekend. At the same time, I have a new kid, he's 1 year old, and I do try to like make sure
Congrats.
that thank you, spend time with my kid and family every day. So
Yeah.
there's certain times that I'm just, it's not, it's like a uncompromised on family time. But outside of that, usually the things I do for work, I really love.
Mhm. Uh, let's spend a few minutes to talk about your the most recent adventure, Atrium. So you built this company and you raised some VC funding for that. What would you consider your key lessons from building Atrium?
I mean, there's so many. So Atrium, we were $75 million, so it was a little bit more than some venture funding. It was a lot, and it was like a legal startup. Don't really need to go into the details of like the
Mhm.
specifics of what we're doing, but like there were a lot of lessons learned because we ended up shutting down the company earlier this year and returning capital to the investors because it wasn't really working in the way that we had hoped. Um, I mean, the first thing is probably just like you should build for something that you really care about. I think when I started the company, it was a very mercenary. I was like, this could be a big business, and I just wasn't. I was building something that probably could have been an okay business, but it wasn't something that was probably my higher purpose that I really really cared about. So for me, that was like a big personal lesson. I mean, a lesson that maybe more tactical from the company was just I think there are two customer segments. Like we could have been serving lawyers, we could have been serving the clients, but we're trying to serve both. And like we should have really just built for one audience. And I think that
Mhm.
was tension was a kind of core failing when we attacked the company. When we were trying to attack that space.
There is also a lesson in honesty, especially for the outside viewers of this adventure, because you decided not to spend all the money and go all the way and then just apologize, but that didn't work. But you decided to give the money back at the point where you knew it's probably not going to work out. How do you go about going all the way, or when is the point when you are sure that this is something which probably wouldn't work?
I just, we had this idea for how it would work. That didn't work out to be like that. It was kind of okay as a business, but it was just not a venture scale business. Like the
Mhm.
margins weren't good. The like the business was not a good business at the time, and I didn't see a way that we weren't able to improve. We're trying to improve it, and we weren't able to improve it substantially. And so the it was like we could keep trying this, but we don't think it's going to work, or we could try to pivot to something new. But in this case, I didn't really believe in the plans that we had to pivot, and so it just didn't make sense to like do something that I didn't believe in. Like it didn't make sense for the investors, in my opinion. It didn't make sense for me. It didn't make sense for our team, where they'd be like forced to do this thing that may or may not work. But like I didn't think it was going to work, so they would just kind of be in the same position where everyone's looking for a job 6 months later. And so that's kind of, it didn't seem to make sense and make everyone do this fire drill for no reason.
Yes, I understand. Justin, you have graduated in philosophy from Yale, and
Yeah.
there's not a very common area where tech entrepreneurs would graduate from. And the good news for us, for the rest of us, is that we get to learn about your journey and how you try to experience life. Please share with us some ways how you go about, and this is something which I've seen in one of your posts. You call it, you talk about baseline happiness. What are your insights into this, and tell us, why did your opinion change over time about whether you can just keep it, or whether you can change your attitude towards baseline happiness?
Sure. So I always thought, it was you were just a certain level of happy, and that's like your fate, right? Like it was maybe environmental, maybe genetic, well, since you were a kid, and then you would develop into this adult, and you had this level of happiness, and that's kind of who you were, and it was impossible to change. And what I found was, I was in this, work on Atrium, things were not going well. I was really struggling, and I was super stressed out, and I was like, I need to do something to change this situation because I feel horrible. And so started working on, very small things. I started trying meditation, started making sure to exercise every day, started doing a gratitude journal. And those habits I found helped me be just happier no matter what my external circumstances were. I was just happier in the moment. And so I kind of realized, like, it got the ball rolling, and I was like, oh, I actually can change. So I started looking for more and more like wellness habits to do. And eventually I built a pretty good routine of things, and, kind of just made me a lot happier in my life, and so I like to talk about it because I wish I had learned about these things earlier in my career. But it took until I was, well into my 30s to do it, to discover them.
When it comes to meditation, are you still doing it every day, or you do it multiple times a day?
Yeah, I meditate every day. I have for the last almost 2 years, and it's something that I find, meditation is like practice. I never really understood why these practices were called practice, but meditation is practice for the real world. And for me, it's it's kind of like lifting weights. You're training. It's like training your mind to be able to be present in your present moment experience, and to be aware and conscious of what your experience is. And so the biggest impact for me has been is to be able to bring that into my life when I'm not meditating, and to be conscious and aware of my experience, whether it's perceptions, emotions, or thoughts, and to understand, to like separate and create that distance between myself and those experiences, which has led me to to see reality more as it really is. And then also, like, oftentimes in the past, I was swept along by those, I'd be thinking these like ruminating thoughts about like what could go wrong, or I'd have anxiety over what was happening, or anger over what was happening in the startup. And I would just be swept along by that, carried along like in the river. And I feel like now I'm much more able to see the river for what it is, and kind of be standing on the banks of it, watching it, rather than being pulled along with it.
Yes. In your Medium post from last year, I have to admit, when I read it, I installed those two apps which you're recommending, and to this day, I'm using it every single day. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Oh, amazing!
We're going to be adding it also to the notes from the talk, and sharing with the audience. But there's one more element which I find very fascinating, and you talk about these negative motivations. Uh, Tell us
Negative
why do you,
visualizations.
yeah, negative visualizations. Tell us why do you find them important?
Well, a negative visualization is something I learned from a friend of mine, and it's a Stoic practice of uh, just visualizing something bad happening to you, right? And like having that be really being in that experience of what would it be like. So for me, it's like oftentimes for whatever reason, I imagine being blind and just what would my life be like, every day if I had been blind or was blinded, and how difficult that would be, and the things that I would have to adapt to. And for me, that process makes me it does a couple of things. When you kind of return to reality from that visualization, you're very thankful for like what you have. And then the second thing is kind of it makes you realize that no matter what circumstance will happen, you will adapt to it. And I found that particularly useful because, I had this test basically about a year ago. I got in this accident where I broke both elbows. And so it was kind of like one of these worst case scenario situations that I'd been visualizing where, so I couldn't, both my arms were broken. I couldn't do anything for myself for days. Um, I couldn't pull up my own pants. I couldn't cut my own food. I couldn't feed myself. And so, uh, during that experience, I realized like, oh, I'm okay with it. Like I'm okay with what's going on. I've like practiced the idea of that something like this happening before. And between that and meditation, I was just like much more able to not fight against my present moment experience and just be okay with what was happening and accept. And for me, I think that was a really important to
Mhm.
surviving it. That's why I really think I love negative visualization. And the last thing I guess I'll say about the article, is that all these wellness habits were so impactful for me. I really wanted to try to help people, facilitate people adopting wellness habits in their own lives. So, I kind of kicked off this app with a couple of friends of mine. One of my brothers, we've been building this app called Kin, Social Habit Tracker. You can
Mhm.
check it out at kinapp.co, and it's basically a way to help people form healthy habits with their groups of connections and friends in their own lives.
I will share with the audience. Uh, Tell us one more thing, which I really would like to hear from you. You unlike most people, you were hardworking and you had some luck as well, and you became extremely successful also financially. And uh, you know, they say success doesn't come, happiness doesn't come with financial success. How do you see this? Where do you draw the line of what is worth running after money and financial success as opposed to quality of life?
Well, I think
What is your take on striving for financial success?
I mean, I used to do it a lot, obviously, like I really wanted to be successful financially. And so that was, helped propel me to become successful. Um, but it was really in a lot of ways
Mhm.
hollow because I got everything I wanted and more, and then realized, well, my life's not really fundamentally different. Um, Luckily, I was very privileged in a way to have before, even when working on startups, I had enough to eat and like enough to put a roof over my head, and I was fine. I was very comfortable. And now I'm like even more comfortable. Have a lot of resources, but it doesn't really change. It didn't really do anything to change my baseline happiness, right? And so that was kind of where I had this idea, like that maybe your happiness can't change. And what I realized is, your external circumstances don't really they having getting more and more on the external doesn't actually do anything to change you. But what can change you is like working on your internal circumstances. And so for me, that's like
Mhm.
almost entirely what I'm doing now. The idea of creating a fund, the idea wasn't to make more money. It wasn't. It's really to facilitate what I like to do, which is learn and connect and mentor other people. And so a vehicle of a fund is like a structure for that. But the idea wasn't like the that it was like the money maximizing thing to do.
Mhm.
And so when I think about how I want to spend my time, I really want to just spend it on the things that I like doing. And that's kind of why I think for me to speak to the earlier question, I don't feel like there's um, like work for me isn't something that like I don't want to do on the weekends or at night or whatever. It's, because usually it's the things that I like doing.
Yes. That's very interesting. Justin, I want to ask you one more question before we just jump in quickly for the Q&A. One other person I've asked about you is Derek Anderson, the founder of Startup Grind, and he told me that apparently you are one of the most thoughtful CEOs he's ever met, and he's met a lot. And apparently your perspective on life and work is very future thinking, and this means that what's important in your life is think about it way out on the horizon. How did you develop this thinking?
I actually don't think that I think about things like way out in the horizon. I think I'm very much not a long-term planner, but maybe I think what he is, referring to is maybe that we had a very deep conversation, Derek and I, about a year ago, and talked a lot about life and maybe philosophy
Mhm.
around life. And a lot of that came from, comes from I guess, my interest in always like learning and improving. I do think I am interested. At first, that improvement was primarily in like the business world and like the external world. And now it's maybe more internal, but I think I've always been interested in learning and improving. And that probably came from, you know, I think it came something about like the way I've always been. Like when I've been, like, was a kid, I think I was always interested in new ideas and learning and trying new things, and I think that's stuck. So in some ways, I've been very fortunate, I guess, to have that like quality.
That's true. Especially fortunate in having discovered it because you keep pushing yourself to learn new things. Are
Um,
there any new skills which you would like to learn in the next few weeks or months? Anything in particular?
that's a good question. I feel like the thing I've been working on most is like deepening my meditation practice. I have a teacher who I work with, and I think that's kind of like one of the areas where I'm like actually improving a lot and kind
Mhm.
of being more conscious of my experience. And so that's probably like the biggest thing that I'm personally working on. I'm also, I guess, at a more practical level. I've been learning how to use my. I have a ranch up here in California, and I've been living here and learning how to use a bulldozer and backhoe, and I'm grading land. It's kind of like a random thing, but I'm flattening some land so
Uh-huh.
I build something on it. Yeah, just doing that myself, and it's been fun to like learn something completely new.
So you're learning the skill of landscaping now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
We might see a Medium post from you about it soon, no?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Flattening good.
Yeah. Justin, quick questions from the audience. Kane wants to know what or who keeps you motivated to keep pushing on your journey to start new ventures?
I think it really helps me to have friends who are always interested in new things and who love building. So, my partner on my fund, Robin Chan, he's somebody who is excited about new ideas, loves startups, and it's nice to be able to have someone to riff with on new ideas, and so that's one of the things that keeps me going.
Yes. Another question for you is what made you decide that Amazon was the right fit for Twitch? Why not Google, Facebook, or another company?
Well, I think the story is pretty well documented. We did try to sell the company to multiple different players, and ultimately Amazon is the one who we could close with, and
Mhm.
obviously it was a pretty large amount of money. I think it's worked out really well because the company's been very supportive of Twitch over the years, and obviously Twitch has
So was it the culture
grown a
fit?
lot.
Was it the money, or what was the key criteria for you?
I think, to be honest, the money was like a
Yeah.
big part of it,
Okay.
because it felt like this crowning achievement at the time. But I think Amazon has been quite a good steward of Twitch, actually.
Okay. We have Ben who wants to know. It's generally perceived that AI, ML, AR is the future of tech. Is live streaming video a part of the future, or is it saturated or plateauing as an opportunity?
Well, I think there's opportunities in live streaming. It probably depends on like you have to find the right new category or feature or product, right? Like I think e-commerce and live streaming is just starting, so that might be an area. Um, but it's kind of like you don't really want to take my word for it, right? Like if you think that there's an opportunity, then you should go and like investigate with the customers. If like it, I think it's I don't know probably the real answer, right?
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for being honest, Justin. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your time with us. We'd really appreciate it. Is there anything which we can do to help you?
Well, I'd love for you to try my app and give me some feedback on it. You can check it out at
The
kinapp.co.
Kinapp? Yes,
Yeah.
we'll do that. Sure.
All right.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy your ranch and landscaping, and keep learning new things. We'll follow your journey going forward. Saying hi to San Francisco, to California. And Justin, thanks again for being here.
Sure. See you later.
Okay, bye-bye.